Welcome to this episode of Turning Grief into Growth, the Journey of Transformation. This is a podcast that's hosted by Greg Jacobs and Don Lipstein. Well, good day, folks. We're here for another episode of Turning Grief into Growth. Excited about this one, Don, as well. I'm excited about every single guest that we have on here, but we've got your cousin, Marna Brickman, that is joining us today on the podcast. So, Don, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you, and you introduce us to Marna. I'm going to also let her kind of introduce herself to us as well.
Sounds good. And there's a reason why Marna's going to introduce herself, because I messed up somehow. She sent me some words to use, and I printed them off, and I can't find them. So
you're saying the dog ate your homework is what I'm hearing.
The dog ate my homework, absolutely. But the things that I want to say about Marna and the way I would introduce her, she's very, I know that she has been successful professionally in her career, and I'm going to let her talk a little bit about that. But I've known her my entire life. Our lives have kind of intertwined. There's been times where we've been really close and interactive with each other, and then there's been times where we've gone separate ways. And I always felt a closeness, not just with her, but her siblings as well. I've just felt this like I'm part of their sibling tribe. I've felt like a brother from another mother. And, Marna is a special person in my life, and I'm just grateful to have her on this podcast. And I know I've heard her on other podcasts, and I know that she has so much to offer to turning grief into growth. And I'm going to let her introduce herself. And thank you for being here, Marna.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. I'm so proud of you for starting this podcast, Greg. This is so needed, such a resource for those going through grief. So as Don said, I'm going to hopefully add a couple tidbits of how to process the grief you may be going through and turning your grief into growth. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I own a small group practice in Annapolis, Maryland, about 30 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. We have a team of very compassionate therapists that work on all kinds of different mental health conditions, anxiety, depression, grief, couples counseling. We work with military and veterans, but my baby is grief. My specialty is grief. It's held a special place in my heart since I was in school. I worked for a grief center for hospice at the Chesapeake. I work with people that have gone through long-term illnesses that turn into loss, and I've worked with people that have had sudden and traumatic loss. And I've worked with people that have had suicide loss. And pet loss, as you all know, I think one of your podcasts was all the ways that loss impacts us. It can be pet loss, decline in health, loss of job, empty nest, loss of a loved one. And I just think it's important to have a space and a place to go and talk about and process that, because not enough people in the world know how to accompany and witness people that are going through those transitions. People kind of want to avoid it and step back. So I really want to bring it to the forefront and normalize it for people and offer whatever help I can offer. So I'm so glad you're doing this podcast. I'm so honored to be part of it.
I love what you just said about normalizing it. I think I copyrighted that word, and I think you stole that from me.
I'll pay you.
I from the beginning, and I say the beginning because I'm only 5 years out, and I say only because, my gosh, I didn't think I would survive and make it 5 years, honestly. But my goal and objective in life now, and this isn't just like a certain facet of my life that you take a pie piece, out and say, okay, this is for, dedicate just to this. You might have a professional life, you might have a personal life, you might have a spiritual. This is like overall, is to really bring a normalcy to grief. And, it's not lost on me that the term turning grief into growth is an oxymoron for most people. They don't really equate the two together. Because what is growth? We're almost to springtime, I hope. although it's been teasing us here in Kentucky with freezing rain. But you have this whole aspect of the blooms start coming out, and the greenery, the grass. You hire the lawn guy to put the fertilizer down, whatever it might be. But there's a lot of people that are like, oh, man, springtime is coming and allergy season is
Mm.
upon us, and there's a negativity towards even the greenery that comes about. So, Marna, with that, talk to us just a little bit about your experience of kind of helping point people towards the direction of hope and that they can live again when it comes to grief.
Oh, sure. Well, I have a great little Marnaism that I learned somewhere along the way. What you grow through, what you go through.
Mm,
If people realize that there's growth and a growth opportunity in the pain they're experiencing, then they can come out the other side 5 years, 10 years, 15 years later, 1 year later. I kind of want to go through some of the things that happen to grief to normalize some people's experience. And then I want to come back to
yeah.
how it transforms into growth. So as you all know, grief hits us in many ways. First of all, it's cumulative. So you don't get over one grief, then the next grief happens. When that second, third, fourth loss happens, you just feel like, how much more can I bear? Because they're all piled up on each other. You don't get to tidy up the nice one nice and tight and put it aside. So grief is cumulative. And then, of course, grief is concurrent. You have to keep living your life when you're grieving. You still have to pay the bills and go to work and parent your other child or see the other parent or whatever it is, take care of the tasks of the grief, the loss that you have to take care of. So you have to concurrently be managing life as you're going through this horrible phase of grief. And then, as you know, grief hits you in so many different ways. So it's very comprehensive. First of all, it hits you physically. I'm sure everyone has felt nauseous, tearful, tightness in the chest, tightness in the throat. Sometimes people take on the symptom of the illness that the person they love died from. If there's a stomach illness, the person starts having stomach issues. So the physical component of grief is very real for people, like headaches, fatigue. Then, of course, grief will hit you emotionally. As we all know, the obvious one is dismay and sorrow, sadness, obvious ones. But what some people are surprised about is the other emotions that come up, like anger. People are quick to anger, very irritable. How can the world be going on when I'm suffering this pain? They're cutting people off in traffic. They're not holding doors for people. They're just so angry because they don't know what to do with this horrible feeling. And then they feel guilty for having anger when they should just be having sadness. Then, of course, a big, horrible part of some grief is guilt. If there's been some way that you felt responsible or some behavior you wish you'd done or some action you wish you'd taken. And I think, suicide loss is really one of the most tragic griefs to grieve because of the guilt component that's part of that. So we need to name guilt that's part of it so that we can process our grief better. And it is part of it. And then we just have to acknowledge it. There's no way around it. We have to look at it, face it, and tuck it away in our pocket. And other emotions are confusion. How did this happen? So the wave of emotions really hits us with grief. And then the other thing that gets us mentally or cognitively a little affected. We can't concentrate on what we're reading. Things are foggy. We forget what we were going to do. We walk into a room. What was I doing in here? And then spiritually, we mentioned, spiritually can be a big part of either your growth or your lack of growth. If you don't have a faith in something that pulls you through this, some people lean into their grief, into their spiritual side. Some people run away from it. It depends on what your background is. It depends on if it is a resource for you, but you do kind of question, is this person in a better place? Is there a rainbow bridge for my dog? Will I see someone else? Is this meant to be? Is this God's will? So spiritually, grief will have you questioning all kinds of things. And then socially, we're like, I don't want to see the world. I want to hide out under the covers. I don't want to be with anyone. I don't want anyone to see my red tear-stained eyes. And then other people like, I don't want to be alone. Let me be out. Let me be out. Let me be out. So grief will get you physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and socially. And I think all those things, people just realize like, that's what's going on with me. It could resonate like, oh, it's just me trying to process the pain of this grief. All those things will hit you. Does that resonate? You're both shaking your heads. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If I may, Greg, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
go ahead.
You do up the bulwark of the talking most of the time anyway. So.
This is true.
Even when he had COVID, he
I was still like this on the microphone.
Committed.
Question.
But I will say you have a lot of good things to offer. So, but I want to back up because our listeners, unless you're watching on YouTube, our listeners did not see Marna put in quotations the word should. And I'm glad that you did that because we do feel like there's a lot of things that we should be doing or should have done, right? Um, and we get caught up in that. And it wasn't until, and I did this for probably the first year or so of my grief. And I had a mentor, Darcy Sims, wonderful woman. And I heard her say, and this was so true, and it hit home, and it made me think about in the future what I need to do. But she said, Don, you got to stop shooting all over yourself. And that, even though it was said in jest, it really stuck in my head that she's right. Like we do that all the time, not just in grief, but in grief, I think it makes it so much harder for us to move forward when we are shooting all over ourselves.
Absolutely.
I think there's commonalities to grief, and then there's just so many individualities that manifest that are so different. So when I'm mentoring a dad who has lost a child, for example, I can't say, this is what you're going to experience. This is what you're getting ready to go through. I can from a 30,000-foot flyover. I could say with a declarative voice that for the most part, people mean well. They don't mean you ill whenever they make stupid comments to you. And it's really hard when you're grieving to comprehend and understand that. But there's such an individuality. Like I have talked to people that are like, no, I didn't have any health issues. And it's like, man, I had high blood pressure, sleep apnea, just a whole gamut of, type things that happened to me physically. And then I had a crisis of faith, because I was very much lay minister involved in my church. And then I talked to others like, no, I didn't experience any of that at all. So it's so different when you're talking about these. I wrote them down: the cumulative, the concurrent, the comprehensive, the emotions. I remember the first year. It was about 9 months maybe after David died. I took a trip to Michigan, which I loved, a vacation up there. Used to take David fishing with the family up there. And I remember going out on this John boat with my fishing pole, and I thought, I'm going to relive this experience. And I got so frustrated, I threw my fishing pole in the tackle box in Lake Hamlin up in Ludington, Michigan. Watched it sink to the bottom. Didn't care, couldn't give two flips. And I was like, well, guess my fishing days are over. I was a very avid reader, loved reading thriller, fiction novels, couldn't pick up a book. So there was some things like that. I haven't really tried fishing since then. I have reading, and the reading is coming back. But what I'd say is, have you experienced the fact that there are some temporary aspects to grief when it comes to some of these emotions that might subside? I was notorious for saying to my friends in year one and year two that I'm not the same person. I mean, if there was an alien that came in and inhabited my being, or if it's possible that DNA can actually be changed, it did with me. I'm a totally different person than you knew before. But talk to us a little bit about the permanence versus a temporary, maybe.
Well, I think temporary, the acute pain is so painful at first. And everyone says, oh, the year first, you'll be fine after the year first, the first birthday, the first anniversary. I don't know that that's true. I think there's a relief to getting through the first year, but the pain lingers, and it depends on your relationship to the lost loved one. It depends on you as a person, and it depends on how they died. It depends on how resilient you were prior to the loss and what your coping mechanisms were before, and your coping skills and your support, and how willing you are to get the support that you need. I think a big part of grief and processing your grief is getting a support team in place. If it's coaches, a therapist, a support group, a community at church that speaks to you. So it's so, like you said, no one grief is the same. So no one recovery is the same. And I think grief, as you both know, grief doesn't go away. We just learn to live with it. And I like to think at first it's blinding us, like we're blinded by it. And then it gets a little bit smaller than we can carry in our pocket, but it never goes away. And that's the love that you have for that loved one. So I say the grief is just love with nowhere to go. And love never dies. So we carry it forever. But we do have to do things to help us process the grief. And that is all about self-care. How do you take care of yourself? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating? Are you drinking water? Are you sharing your emotions with somebody else? Are you talking about your lost loved one? That's another thing. People are afraid to talk about their lost loved. Say their name, speak of them, say their stories, ask people to tell you memories of them. That keeps the connection going, and that helps with the grief process. So important. A lot of people are afraid. Like, no, you saying his name doesn't mean he's not gone. It means you remember him too. That means that you're bringing his memory to light. And I'd love to hear that. Part of the problem with grief in our society is people don't know what to do. Like they say stupid things. I had one client said, I wish I could write a book for all the stupid things people said to me after my son died. People mean well, they just don't know what words to use. They're uncomfortable themselves. They don't want it to happen to them, God forbid. But I really think there's an opportunity for the bereaved to help them say, I'm thinking of David today. Can you tell me a story? Or I need to share some of my loss right now. Or it's a bad day for me. And just continue to get the support, because locking it away up tight, it just, once you keep it down, it's like a rubber ducky. It's going to pop up somewhere. So we have to let it out. We have to have a place to bring it. And I really love that you're doing this podcast, because we need more resources where people can talk about grief and normalize the process and get the support that they need. Because that's what it is. We need our grief to be witnessed. We need a companion in our grief. David Kessler, great author. There are some great books out there, but there aren't enough podcasts, there aren't enough TV shows, there aren't enough movies telling the story of grief and how a grief process can really look. It's usually not represented correctly.
Maybe we should start producing a movie.
That'd be great. Who will play you, Don? Who would play you in the movie, Don? Brad Pitt.
There you go.
I think Don is about as good as it gets. He should play himself.
Marna, I know that your grief, your personal grief, has helped you to be a better grief counselor, therapist. Sure. Can you speak at all to that?
I would love to speak to that, because my mom was in her 70s and had a chronic condition that we knew someday was going to be the end of her. She had COPD. And the summer that she fell and hurt herself, and we knew we had a summer to love her before she just, her lung capacity couldn't manage the injury that she had. But before she got sick that summer, I always said, when I lose my mom, I'm going to need a straitjacket. Like, the thought of losing my mom and life without my mom was unbearable. Like, how do you live without your mom? The one person whose eyes light up no matter what you do. Mom, I just pooped. Woohoo! I'm 33. I just pooped. Whatever. Your mom loves you no matter what. I failed. I succeeded. I broke up. But mom's eyes, your biggest champion, your biggest cheerleader. And my mom, Greg, was a special woman. She was a hippie and loved everyone. Everyone was welcome in her home. She was everyone's mother. And she wore patchouli. So whenever you smell patchouli, you think of my mom. She's just one of those unique people. And to lose her and the support that she offered in our lives, and it was a devastating lead up. So she got sick, and then we had a summer of love to love her, because we knew she was declining. So she got hurt in May and we lost her in August, but the world came to visit her. We had a living Shiva. Shiva is what you do after someone dies in the Jewish religion. We had one beforehand, so everyone could come and celebrate with her and visit her in her nursing home. It was a lovely way. So I was very lucky that I knew when she was going to die, and I got to say my goodbyes. I got to spend time with her. I got to take videos. I got to take pictures. So my grief, as painful as it is, wasn't as traumatic as if I lost her suddenly, or if I didn't get to say the words I needed to say to her, couldn't get her to say the words I needed to hear from her. But losing her for days, weeks, I would be sobbing up in my bedroom. My husband would come in and find me in the bed sobbing. I could not accept that life with my mom was going to be okay. I had to take time off work. And people like, oh, you lost your mom? I'm sorry. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I lost my mom. It's like, but people don't understand until they've gone through it. So
Yeah.
I don't want the whole world to go through the pain just to understand my pain, but people don't understand it until they've gone through it. And it does soften. It does get easier. And I wear, there, we always say I have linking objects. This was her ring. I wear her ring as a necklace to keep her connected to me. You get support. You find other people that have gone through it. You have family members that you can talk to. You reach out to whomever that might have had a similar experience so they can say, yeah, I get it, I see. And then you start telling people how they can help you. Like, I really need a moment. I need to go out. I need you to take me on a walk. I need you to buy me a beer. I need you to tell me a story, one of your favorite memories of mom. Like, you do whatever you can. You want to keep the memory alive and you want to soothe your soul, but you have to tell people because people think, oh, I'm sorry you lost your mom. They move on. Our grief lasts forever. Their sympathy goes away quickly.
It's like an object to them. Your mother passed, and it's an object. It's not just a full-fledged part of your
Occurrence.
being.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
And I'm still waiting for Don to buy me a beer, by the way, but it's a little hard when we're in separate states. But there's a couple things that you said, Marna, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this. You said, is it Shiva?
Shiva. Mm-hmm.
Shiva. So we've talked on prior podcast about celebration of life.
Mm-hmm.
And how I feel it's an oxymoron. I know I've used that word twice now in this episode. I apologize.
Who's counting?
Yeah, me. How I feel like it's an oxymoron for child loss. Because you're deer in the headlights. It's so strong and so hard versus a parent or a grandparent. Like we had a celebration of life service recently for my wife's 102-year-old grandmother. But I love the fact that you did that before your mother died, and the goodbyes and the memories, and do you remember this? Do you remember that? So I think there's a lot of power in that. I want to circle the wagons back to what we initially mentioned with normalcy, and I think that you don't know what you don't know. I'm going to share just two different brief examples. In 2010, I went to Haiti to help with earthquake relief efforts, and I remember somebody that was near me, not part of our group, but another American, was a college student. She had made a comment I don't know if it was to the translator or if it was just out loud. She goes, man, this is just an ugly, cursed country, something to that extent. And I went over and I pulled the translator, who was Haitian, aside. And I said, hey, look, I apologize that she basically denigrated your country because I don't understand anyway what she's saying. This is the most beautiful place in the world. I mean, this is God's country. So he had nothing to compare by. He had nothing to really, see. To him, he was living in the lap of luxury. I also recently listened to a podcast where there was two grieving parents on there, and they had totally different experiences with their grief journey. The first was an American, him and his wife. They were probably in their 70s or 80s now, and they had lost their son over in Africa where they were missionaries in Kenya. And they shared this experience of how these Maasai warriors, would walk 30 miles and their feet were, bloody with thorns and everything, just to be able to come to pay their respects and to love on these missionaries. And they were just surrounded by this community and this love. And the other couple that was on the podcast they were from Canada, and they lost their son during COVID down here in Louisville at a seminary. And their experience was totally different. They weren't allowed to have a funeral. Nobody came and, comforted them. Which is really a lot of what we experience here in America. Sounds like they experienced in Canada. So it's not a besmirching of any certain country. I just think that there's a naivety when it comes to grief. We don't know what we don't know. So I do think that this is almost more of a platform sometimes too, to help educate and to bring that normalcy, to be able to say, hey, it's okay. You're not, as Dr. Alan Wolfeld says, you're not crazy, you're grieving. Because that was the biggest question I had earlier on. Am I crazy? Do I need to be committed to an insane asylum? Is something going on here? What is wrong with me? Where did these suicidal thoughts come from? I'd never, entertained or experienced those before. So we do handle things differently in the U.S. And we have an international listener base. I think we're like at 9 countries now. So people from all over, from Switzerland to Kenya, all over the world are listening to this podcast. And I am curious, put in the comments of the podcast what your experience has been or seen around the country or around the world, rather.
There's one city, town, village somewhere overseas that when someone dies, everyone in the community moves something in their home or in their yard
Mm.
because nothing's the same after someone's gone. And the community wants to support the person who's lost their loved one. I think that is such a sweet
Wow.
gesture. The whole community, either something on the porch, something in their home. Nothing's the same when someone dies. Oh, if we could do that in the US, yeah.
Yeah.
So I wish I think the more we talk about it, the more Alan Wolfoltz and David Kesslers and you guys are out there, we're going to normalize the conversation. I think everyone knows the stages of grief that came from the stages of dying from Kubler-Ross, the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But did you know that David Kessler came up with a new stage that he's written a book on called Finding Meaning that he co-wrote with Kubler-Ross, and they want there to be meaning in the loss that we're experiencing. So hopefully, as people are healing and their grief is becoming softer, it's like sea glass has to get tousled and bustled. It's very jagged at first, but it does soften and becomes something beautiful. You can find meaning in your loss. And I think both of you know that, like you're being of service to the world of grievers. I'm sure other people who've lost someone to a certain disease now are fundraising for that disease, or people that weren't in a great relationship with their lost loved one have improved their relationships in honor of their lost loved one. Like finding meaning is the growth opportunity for us when we experience any type of loss.
Absolutely. And you're doing that so well. And when I look at both of you on the screen, I think about how all three of us, but the two of you in particular, just doing wonderful things to help people get through this very difficult time in their lives. And I, what you were saying about the cultural thing, it's definitely it affects uh, us and some of it very negatively when we're going through the grief. The cultural part of what we do here in the States, like to give 3 days off for a family member, is just, we know it's not enough. But yet that's the norm. There are other organizations that know that grief is important and they do give more. TAPS, when I worked for them, they were very gracious and gave us 10 days to grieve and mourn. So they
That's
know and
wonderful.
understand. Yeah.
Wonderful and still not near enough, right?
Yes, and still not near enough. Exactly.
Yeah,
But I love how you were talking about, how others honor and recognize our grief when it's happening to us. Um, I have found that uh, most of us are finding new communities, communities of support. Uh, TAPS was that. Uh, we have there's Coping After Suicide that I'm connected with, and The Sun Will Rise. There's all kinds of communities that I feel very connected to. And I think that's important. That's an important piece, that connection to help us uh, to grow in our grief.
I think so too. It's also helpful to find people who've had a similar loss, because me losing my mom is very different than you losing your son. So the grief is going to be completely different.
Yeah.
So it's really helpful to find, and you're never going to find someone with the exact same experience, but similar, like a child loss is different than a parent loss, or so it's helpful to find people that you can look in the eyes and say, I feel your pain. I know a little bit about what you must be going through, whereas I won't. God forbid, So I just think it's important to get with people with similar losses. And Facebook's been great with that too. There's a lot of Facebook groups where you can go on and find similar losses and get the support that you need. I think we need support. I think grief. That's what, no one's getting out of here. Like, there's going to be losses in your life. You have to know how to talk about it, respect it, process it, help other people with it. It's so fun. When I was specializing in grief, you're like, why would you want to work in grief? I'm like, why wouldn't you can't be a good therapist if you don't know how to work in loss and transition and grief. Well, I don't mean some, but it's going to come up in their work. There's going to be some loss that's kind of going to trigger them or set them back, or that third or fourth final loss after their mother, their father, then their dog. You need to know how to help people. You need to have the words, and you need to honor how confusing it is and how sad it is and how long it takes, and how, I'm like, we can talk about it for 10 years. You tell me another story about your mom. Like, just, I'm here. I want to hear it and I want to support you. But that's not how the world is, unfortunately. I'm curious. I want to ask you both a question. What has been most impactful and helpful for both you and your grief journeys?
Good question. You want to go first? You want me to,
No, I was
Greg?
going to let you go as I simmer on that.
Okay. Um, I I definitely feel like connection with others, the peer support that I received was extremely helpful in my early years, and then the peer support that I was able to give also was very helpful in my later years. So I think connection, just knowing you're not alone, and to help others to know that they're not alone, was probably the most helpful for me.
Mhm.
Ditto. I would say that companioning, and I know that's really a term to mention Dr. Alan Whitfield again, to give him credit that he really came up with, coming alongside others, walking this journey with them, not feeling like you have to fix them, but being willing to hold the flashlight in the dark for them. That has been a huge thing for me. I've got a local group, Your Dad Forever. We get together, there's about 7 of us, a whole lot more that won't be a part of a group setting that I get together with individually locally. But that's the one that we'll get together as a group. And that's been very therapeutic for me, for them. Talked to a gentleman yesterday. He's been a guest on this podcast, and out of the clear blue, was dealing with thoughts of the loss of his daughter again. He's like, "Where'd this come from?" It was just out of right field, and we had a good conversation, just kind of talking about different things. I think for me, I enjoy writing. So I've written about 5 or 6 articles in the TAPS magazine. This morning, I was proofing a chapter of a book that's being written for TAFs to hand out to people on my journey. And I struggled with pride in the past. I've always written. I've been written hundreds of blogs and wrote a book in the past. And I think that an author wants to have feedback, wants to know what people think, and it's been very therapeutic for me not to get that.
Mhm.
So I don't get feedback on my articles because there's no venue of them reaching out to me. Same for this podcast. We've had about 2 comments out of all the podcast, but I know that I'm doing good work, and I think that Don and I leading by vulnerability and authenticity is where it's at. We're not coming at you from a place of unaware. We don't know what we're talking about. This is what this book says. This is what we've experienced. And we've had very different journeys, but we've walked side by side on that journey. Marna, I want to circle back to something you had said about, because it wasn't lost on me. You said it very quickly, but you said that maybe you used to open doors and return grocery carts for people. And I find that very insightful because that is just a common mannerism of politeness and etiquette in our society, that you turn very selfish and self-centered and isolated in many ways at the beginning of your mourning journey. And that is something that I found myself doing too, where I was always a person, being polite, opening the door, for people. If I saw, an elderly woman, loading groceries in the back of her trunk of her car, I'd go up and I'd ask if I could return her card for her or whatever. That kind of went away, but it has come back. But I just find it interesting. There is some things that are kind of a cycle, some temporary, some permanent with that, but not to be shocked over difference of mannerisms, I guess.
You only have the capacity for so much. And when you're grieving, it takes front and center stage, and it's exhausting and overwhelming and all consuming. So if you don't have the energy to be the polite man you used to be in the moment, trust that it'll come back. Just give yourself grace and space and send out good vibes. Sorry, lady, I can't help you right now, but it really is. There's just not enough bandwidth for all that
Yeah.
you're holding on to, and it'll come back around. You're a good person before the good person will come back after you've had some time to process. And I want to say one thing. You said that you guys are doing good work. I would say you're doing important work as well. Really important.
Thank you.
You just brought up a really good point. The compassion that we have for others, we also need to give it to ourselves, right?
Sure.
The love that we have for others needs to be bestowed on ourselves as well, and the grace that we give to others, we have to give to ourselves.
Grace and self-care. Really rest when you need to rest. Stay in when you need to stay in. Drink that water. Eat healthy food. Journal. Glad you're a writer. So important to get these thoughts out. They roll around in our head too much. It's like, so get them out on paper. Go to therapy, go to support groups, and just know, like, hug yourself, pat yourself, like, I'm okay. This is hard. This is the most painful thing I've ever been through. No one should have to experience this. So really gentle, soften your shoulders, soften your throat, take deep breaths. Know that what you're going through is what no one else should ever have to experience. And but through your experience, you're going to help a lot of people.
Yeah. And, and
mental
know that
hygiene.
mental hygiene. Yes. Oh, mental hygiene. I was sniffing my underarms there for those that didn't see. I think that capacity is a topic for a different podcast, but that is a whole different realm I want to venture into down the line, because that for me has been the hardest thing, is learning to say no and knowing that I'm at capacity and I can't take any more. Or I will know what my capacity level is and I'll fill it to the brim. And then it's those outside things that come in I wasn't expecting that flow me over. So that I just have to be careful with. So
we do, we keep expanding our plate. We need to take things off our plate, not make our plate bigger. We need to take things off, especially in the throes of early grief. It's just too much for our body. It's a shock to our system, and our body's still getting used to the fact that that person is no longer there, because we have trace circuits telling us that person is still in our life. So the memories don't go away. So our body's still trying to adjust to them not being physically there. So there's a lot of work going on, and all the emotions that we talk about that are racing through, and all the cognitive things that are going on, and all the things you still have to take care of. So it's exhausting. So gentle, grace, space. Take time for yourself. Let people know today's not a good day, or would you go for a walk with me today, or could you pick something up at the store for me today, or I'm not taking calls today. Really self-care above all else.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yep.
Yeah.
Marna, it's been awesome having you on today. I knew it would be, but you're such a knowledgeable and I know a very effective therapist. So, what's the name of your practice?
Oh, my practice is Guiding Therapy, Annapolis, Maryland. We take one insurance to support military and veterans, and we have a little bit of availability, and we have females and one male too, and we have a Spanish-speaking therapist, so we can provide services in Spanish as well. So there's my plug. But this has been so wonderful. The work you all are doing is so important. We need about 1,000 more episodes, and so can I copy this and put this on my website?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
Yeah, please do.
And Marna, I want to thank you because we need more people like you out there as well. And I think it's easy to applaud Donna and I for starting a podcast, but you've been doing the work in the trenches, and this has been something that you don't come to us from a lack of experience. So thank you so much. And Dawn and I, from the bottom of our heart, really appreciate you taking the time out today to come on this podcast. So folks, until next time. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen. We hope turning grief into growth spoke to your heart and becomes a part of your own journey of healing and transformation. If you know someone who could use a little hope, please share this episode with them. And don't forget to follow, like, or subscribe on your favorite platform so you don't miss what's coming next. Don and I can't wait to share more conversations to help you keep turning your grief into growth. Until next time.